Good afternoon. I'm Caitlin Matson. This is the Green Room. Brent Williams is the founding artistic director of the Chamber Music Society of Wichita. Their next event is this Sunday afternoon at the Wichita Art Museum and features the Anchia Saxophone Quartet. Hello, Brent.
Hello, how's it going, Caitlin?
It would help greatly if I actually turned on your microphone. Hello, Brent.
Hello again. How are you?
I'm well. A saxophone quartet. That is not the norm for many of us. Usually, that's kind of a rare ensemble that we get to see in person.
It seems that way, but it's actually becoming much more common.
Mm.
It's certainly something that didn't exist, in the early part of the 20th century, but it has become one of the standard groupings actually. And if you go to chamber music competitions, for example, oftentimes they'll have their own um, category just for saxophone quartets, though usually they're kind of lumped in with all the
Really?
winds and percussion. But sometimes they'll even have their own division, which is interesting. So it's become very common, even though it hasn't historically been so.
And I suppose it makes sense because there's more than one saxophone, just as, there's a violin, there's a viola, there's a cello, you have an alto, you have a tenor, you have different saxophones.
Exactly, and they have that advantage as far as blending sound goes.
Hmm.
Even though, as you just mentioned, violins and violas and cellos are clearly related, still the saxophone family was designed to be exactly that, and they blend very well together. It's kind of astonishing, actually, how they're able to do that. And composers have been taking advantage of that, for quite a while now.
The 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 quartet themselves, I was reading about them, Anchia Saxophone Quartet. They all appear to be residents of the North, the
They
northern
are.
states, with Wisconsin and such. They're all music professors. They're all highly regarded professors and soloists, recitalists in their fields. Uh, and now they have an opportunity to kind of show off here for us in Wichita. Would you talk with us about the program? What pieces are they performing?
Absolutely. They are playing, let's see here, the Ravel Quartet in F major. They've also got Elysian Bridges by John Anthony Lennon, so not the former Beatle, but rather the minimalist composer. It's based in Atlanta. Libby Larson's Confluence, Ex Machina by Mark Mellitz, and Joan Hutton's Dirty Secret. And she's actually one of the saxophonists in the group, so a composer in their midst.
Besides the Ravel, all of the composers that you just mentioned, are those contemporary living composers?
Yes, as far as I know, they are all living. Certainly Joan is, because she'll be here on Sunday.
We hope
um,
so.
and I know Libby is still alive. Mark, I'm almost positive is, and John Anthony Lynn, I'm pretty sure is still amongst us as well. Almost positive.
The Ravel Quartet in F, was that composed for saxophones or is that a string quartet piece?
That is a string quartet piece that they have adapted for saxophone quartet. In fact, a lot of saxophone quartets play that work in particular. There's been kind of a movement, and some of my saxophone friends and I joke about it, I'll say lightly, um, as far as them stealing, quote unquote, stealing our string quartet rep. But some of those thefts work out quite well and others not so much. This one I think works really well for saxophones. Whenever they're trying to play, classical works that have a bunch of chords that would have originally been written for the violins, for example, they can't really, I know that multiphonics are possible, but they don't really pull off the chords quite the right way. But this string quartet, or at least originally was a string quartet, I think works very well for saxophones.
Oh, well, and plus they have to breathe.
Yes, yeah, they do. That is something they have to overcome somehow, unless they do circular breathing, which I know a lot of them are able to.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, where they store up
Yes.
air in their cheeks and they push it out as they breathe in simultaneously through their nose, so
See,
they
now
can have.
this is a skill that when players, like you said, a lot of the master circular breathing, it is fascinating to me. I've never tried it. Of course I haven't. I don't have reason to. It's
Exactly,
not
right.
it's not
Why would you?
necessarily on my list of, 2023 New Year's resolutions is to learn how to circular breathe, although maybe I should. That's just amazing to me. So, they really could. It
They
is
could, and I'm
possible.
not saying that these four individuals can circular read, but I think that a lot of professional reed players can, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they could and may in fact do so from time to time if the phrase length is long enough.
Right, right. That's so fascinating. We're actually going to hear a little bit of the Ravel. The recording I have is original recording for string quartet, but it will give our listeners kind of an idea of what they get to hear if they can imagine a string quartet piece arranged for a saxophone quartet. But before I press play, where is the concert at and what time?
The concert's this Sunday, the 29th, starting, well, I guess the concert itself starts at 5:30 p.m., though there's some, extracurriculars that happen before that, which we can talk about later. And the concert itself is at the Wichita Art Museum, 1400 Museum Boulevard.
This is the Blair String Quartet performing the Vif et Agite from Ravel's String Quartet in F. We'll be right back with Brent Williams. Maurice Ravel's String Quartet in F. Now imagine that arranged for a saxophone quartet, and that is what you will hear if you attend the Wichita, the Chamber Music Society of Wichita on Sunday afternoon, the Wichita Art Museum. They are bringing in the talents of the Anchia Saxophone Quartet. And here in the green room, I have Brent Williams, who is the founding artistic director of the Chamber Music Society of Wichita. You have a wonderful partnership going with the Wichita Art Museum. And it's, although the music is front and center, it's the focus. It's the meaning of congregating together at the Art Museum. There are some extra things going on. What are they?
Yeah, we are very lucky to have the partnership with the Wichita Art Museum. Our concerts, as was mentioned before, happen in the Farha Great Hall, which is the larger room with the Chihuly chandelier kind of in the center of it. And the way that our schedule typically works is that the doors open, quote unquote, at 4 o'clock, and I put it in quotes because, as you know, the museum's already been open, but our ticket holders can get in with their ducats at that time, and there's adult beverages being served, a cash bar kind of a setting, and also boxed bites can be acquired. So, food and drink, in other words. The galleries themselves are open to our ticket holders so they can walk about the visual art and, take in those masterpieces before the music actually begins. So there's about an hour and a half period of time there where you can stroll around and see what else the museum has to offer. We usually have a pre-concert kind of chat at 5 o'clock.
Great.
And in this case, it's like short little interviews with the performers themselves. And then the concert, like I mentioned before, is at 5:30.
That's fantastic. So the Anchia Saxophone Quartet comprised of faculty members from Augsburg College, University of Minnesota, University of Wisconsin, River Falls, University of Wisconsin, Whitewater, all joining together, and they travel around and they perform around the country and beyond. Fascinating to learn that a saxophone quartet really isn't all that rare. And these days, composers are specifically composing music for that voicing, for that ensemble. And so anybody who has an interest in this Saturday, doors open at 4. The pre-concert talk is at 5. The performance begins at 5:30 at the Wichita Art Museum. Where do they go for tickets?
I think go to our website, which is cmswichita.org. And I think you accidentally said it was Saturday. The concert's actually on
Sunday. Pardon me.
Totally fine.
Oops. Sunday, January the 29th at the Wichita Art Museum. The actual concert begins at 5:30, but the doors open as early as 4. So if you're a ticket holder, you can go in, browse the galleries, maybe get a little bite and a drink, make a whole evening of it. So let's talk ahead. What else do you have for us this season?
Sure. Later on in the season, there's nothing currently for February, but in March, sorry, I think I accidentally lost my signal. Oh, there you are.
No, you're here. I
Disappeared
see
for
you.
a second. Okay, good. In March, we have the Acropolis Reed Quintet. They are an unusual combination of instruments. All reed instruments, as the name implies, of course. but they are sporting, let's see here if I can remember exactly right. They've got oboe, clarinet, bass clarinet, saxophone, and bassoon. And they're based in Michigan. They're a fantastic young ensemble that I think I first probably came across them at a chamber music competition that I was in also. It would have been like 2010, I want to say, or so, the Plowman competition. So I've been following them from a distance for quite a while. And then in April, we'll have our resident group, the Outburst Chamber Orchestra, that's going to perform a quintet by Von Williams, the D major. Sometimes it's called the piano quintet in D major, though it has horn and clarinet in it, so it's not a traditional piano quintet kind of a situation. But then also we're playing a piece by Mike A. Noss called Digit Number 2, a work by Ellen Zwillick called Pas de Trois, and what am I forgetting? Oh, the Shostakovich piano trio in E minor. So that's what's happening in April.
The mission of Chamber Music Society of Wichita, bringing professional ensembles to the area, but also to give, your resident chamber music ensemble a performing opportunity. All this together, really perfect timing. You came to the Wichita during COVID or right before the shutdown. Is that correct? Is when you moved?
Yeah, just before, basically a year before. So there was a
Yeah.
year where my family got to start to, enjoy Wichita, and then everything got shut down promptly.
And the building of the Chamber Music Society of Wichita kind of happened during that time.
Indeed, our launch was supposed to be the fall of 2020. 2019 was kind of or I should say, the fall of 2019 and the spring of 2020 was supposed to be our planning period, which it was, but then the launch had to be delayed, obviously, by a year. So
this is your second season.
That's
Wonderful
right.
timing, because we just saw, the retirement of chamber music at the Barn, with the Wichita area's long-standing summer chamber music festival, very deeply loved, and it left such a hole, such a loss to not have chamber music in the Wichita area. And here you are with Chamber Music Society of Wichita, not only employing local musicians, but bringing in outside professional groups and new composers as well. Last season, you had a composer in residence, and I see, just looking through the repertoire for this year and all your different contemporary composers you're highlighting, it's kind of wonderful for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hopefully it's a beneficial situation for all of us. Symbiotic is the word I was struggling to find for a second there, which is to say that these composers, really fantastic works, get some performances, but also we as audience members get to experience all these new voices. And in some cases just underappreciated, not necessarily new. But yeah, we don't have a composer in residence this season because it's kind of an expensive undertaking, as you might imagine.
Yeah, sure.
But it's something that I would love to be able to do again in the future, because I love new music, just generally speaking.
That's wonderful. The Chamber Music Society of Wichita presents the Anchia Saxophone Quartet this Sunday afternoon, January the 29th at the Wichita Art Museum. The concert starts at 5:30, but doors open at 4. You can go browse the galleries. You can listen to the pre-concert talk. You can grab a bite, grab a drink, make a whole evening out of the experience. Brent, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Caitlin.
Yes, have a wonderful concert.
We will.